We are now recording. So,
Okay.
hello everybody. I'm Mark Duggar,
And I'm Nicole Dickson
and
again.
this is Above All Awesome with Mark and Nicole.
Woo!
Yeah,
We are above.
we are awesome. So today I got CPR certified,
That's right. You did.
and
Not wilderness CPR certified
not wilderness CPR because apparently now that's very different.
though.
Um, the wilderness class. It actually got brought up while we were taking the class. I forget how.
Did it
Somebody,
really?
yeah, somebody mentioned something about like being out in the woods or whatever, and our instructor was like, "Oh, there's a wilderness class. We won't cover that here." And I was like, "Okay."
Like, but I will be taking the wilderness class.
It's like at some point or another, I will do that. I feel like I should do that before I go to the hiring event, just to be like, not only am I certified in CPR and first aid, but I also have a second certification specifically in wilderness first aid and survival.
And be like, just so y'all know, I took this for you, but not really for you. Sort of.
Right.
Oh.
So that was there. It was funny. The whole class was funny to me because uh, because in my head, like
Like the
I
people
knew,
in it or the class itself?
huh?
I said like the people in it or the class
Well, some
itself.
of the people in it were funny, but the class itself as a whole to me was amusing because it just because we start right. We start. She's going, okay, you're gonna turn to this page and blah blah blah, and it just like racing through like yada yada yada. Oh, you can read about that on your own time. And I'm thinking, what own time? I don't get to take this book home with me. I don't get to. What are you talking about?
Oh, wow.
We're not stopping in this class because you're just hitting the beats you need to hit and we're moving on. So she's like, you can read about all that later. And I'm like, what? I mean, I guess I could because it's all available online. So when you say later, I could easily get a hold of it, but it's just still in my brain sounded weird because I'm going, I don't get to take this book home with me. When you say later, I don't, this isn't like, it sounds like you mean later in the class when we have downtime, which there won't be because it's a quick 5 hour class at the end of which they're like, good job. Now you know how to do these things. Get out of here.
Right.
You know?
And if you do have downtime, you're going to be like, eating a granola bar or something. You're not
Right,
going to be
right.
reading a textbook.
And,
You're playing chip
it was
game. Or something.
when I called you because when I called you when we were on lunch in my head, I hadn't even it hadn't even occurred to me that there would be a lunch, like that had never
You
crossed
just
my.
thought it was going to be like 5 hour, like a
See,
what
this
did
is.
you think it was going to be, Mark? Like Survivor?
I thought honestly, Nicole, I thought that we were going to be shoved into a situation where we had to react and do all these things after they went over the basics. I know they were going to say, "You have to go do this all now, everything," and
Did you really think
we
that?
and until we're done, you will not leave this building until we
Wow.
know. No, I'm not. I'm kidding. That's not
No,
entirely.
no, I
But
told you, like,
but
suck the money and punch it, and you're done.
right. Well, but in all honesty, because this is how I approach things like that. When I go, oh, it's only 5 hours. It's not a lot to, I just like to get in there and knock it out. So
Well,
my
yeah, for
brain,
you, 5 hours is nothing. You're a theater person.
yeah.
You're like,
So in
yeah,
my brain, when they say, all right, we're going to do, it's a 5 hour class or whatever, it starts at 9, ends at 2 or whatever it is. I was like, all right, well, we're going to get in there and we're going to just punch it out. And then, we had like 3 or 4 5 minute breaks. There was the lunch. I was like, an hour of this day is lost to the breaks.
yep.
I was like, this actually is like a 4 hour class. We could have knocked this out so quickly.
You're like, I am missing an hour of instruction, which I will now demand.
Exactly.
You are staying behind, instructor. I don't care.
I don't know what you have to
Teach me
do.
about snake bites and wilderness splints. We skipped that in the book. I want
Did
to
skip
know.
those
I want
things.
to know the proper way to treat shock. Go.
Well, that they covered.
Of course they did. Shock is important. Like, it will, yeah.
You know
I'm
what?
sure our viewers know
That
that
shock.
shock can kill you.
It it can,
It can.
which I found. Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to say this because I mean, it just this moment requires it. The fact that shock can kill you, I found shocking. Um,
But did you really? Did you really find it shocking? You didn't know that?
uh, you know, I feel like maybe I should have, or like but it just
Hmm.
no, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. When your body goes into that like torpor state almost, you know what I'm talking. Now I'm gonna sound like a total geek, but you know, like Vampire the Masquerade, like when the yeah. Hi everyone, my husband's a role player. Um, But no, like in Vampire the Masquerade, when they go into what torpor is that what it's called? When they have to go to ground and they're there for like 80 years or whatever. It was on
Right,
Being Human too.
right.
Um, but
I'm not sure what it's called.
anyways, so shock is kind of like that in a way. Your body's like, I'm done.
It
I'm
just starts
fucking
shutting
done.
down.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you go, oh God, oh shit, what do I do? And you don't give shock people water, and you're
Yeah, yeah.
but you give everybody what? No, no, you
No,
do
you
not.
do not.
And
Actually, that's one of those key things in almost all of the first aid stuff. They're like, so and so's injured, yada yada yada. Don't give them food and water. Oh, oh, because if they wind up in the hospital, which at that point is very likely, the doctors don't want anything in the system that wasn't already there because they don't, you're introducing new variables or whatever. And
well, and also if they vomit, if
yeah,
they
and if there's
really want to
vomit and
have
things like that.
vomit, food and
So,
water. But
so
no, I agree. And you never know what's really wrong. So like
yeah,
exactly like introducing this, but it's weird because like the average human would be like, well, you don't feel well, let me feed and water you, not water you like you're a plant, but you know what I mean. You don't get a
You're
mister.
looking a little sickly today. Has anyone watered you? Oh, that looks
Oh my
better.
god, oh my god. Speaking of, um, so
Before you say this, I just want to say, I have an airplane, the movie Airplane,
I love
tie-in to this
airplanes.
class. So remind me to come back to that because I do want to come back to that.
Okay, I will not let you forget the tie-in for Airplane. Trust me. I will not.
Okay, so you
Um,
were going to say?
no, basically the same thing, except I was with a bunch of, and by a bunch I mean over 60 or 70 second graders from the Norfolk Public School District today at a wonderful place called Camp Young.
Mhm.
And I mean wonderful in a sincere way. I probably don't sound sincere, so I just wanted to be very clear. We'll get back to that. But no, but I wanted to be very clear that I sincerely mean a wonderful place.
Right.
And I thought it was kind of cool in a way, like the lady who introduced the kids or whatever introduced herself to the kids. Now remember, these are most of them are charter one schools, by and large disenfranchised youth. And so when the lady like introduced herself and told them the rules, she's like, Camp Young only has three rules, and the first rule is be kind, and the second rule is be safe, and the third rule is have fun.
Yeah,
So,
I love that rule. That's my favorite rule.
but the whole time she was talking to the kids, she called them intelligent, and she called them well behaved, and so she was constantly positively reinforcing them, not gushing, but just
Right.
saying as a matter of fact. Like, I was told that you guys are the most intelligent and the most well behaved students in all of the Norfolk districts, blah, 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 blah. And I thought that that was really important as far as engendering a sense of, I don't want to say well being, but
Well,
pride,
self-confidence.
self confidence, pride in the kids.
Yeah.
Because, again, uh, my guess would be that a lot of these kids don't hear that a lot of times. They
Right.
don't hear, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're intelligent, you're well behaved.
Right.
They hear
Well, to be
negative.
fair, they're disenfranchised. They are not name brand kids.
But exactly. Well, um, but I did. I thought it was. I was like, I was about to be like an intelligent discussion, exactly, and then I realized it's. Um, but so they're the generic product.
They're the
Um,
generic product.
but no, they were
But
good.
well,
Oh, So about watering and watering people, so to speak. Um, uh, so we learned about plants today. Like the Nauticus thing was, let's learn about plants. And my buddy that I worked with was like, what do plants do that humans can't do? And God bless these little second graders. They tried. They're like, they grow roots. They do this. Um, and then of course it's, they make their own food.
Right.
Um, but but yeah, I forget why the whole watering thing. Well, I guess maybe because we were talking about plants.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyways, there was something to do with misters, like not Mr. People, but like misters. But I
Oh,
don't
okay, I know what you mean.
remember it right now.
But it has escaped my memory.
And it escaped my memory, and this whole point
This
was
entire story. Now I don't know why I was telling it. And then I found $20.
oh wait, what was there was a joke, or there was a movie. There was a oh no, it's
Air,
Blackadder. Here we go again.
oh, okay.
So not only am I a role playing geek, I'm also a Britcom geek. Yay!
Yeah,
But well, you know that, but the
I.
viewers
But then,
don't. In Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson is talking to the Queen, and he says, "Ma'am, life without you is like a broken pencil." And she looks at him and he goes, "Pointless." Which every time now I say pointless, I of course think of that. Um, yeah,
it's okay. I have phrases that I say that may instantly make me go, "Ha!" A movie.
movie.
Um,
But anyways, so speaking of movies,
so speaking of movies,
how beautifully we tie into the airplane
look at
segment.
that segue.
People, this is not scripted,
Um,
but you would think it was.
you would think it was.
But
So okay. In Airplane, there's the sequence when Leslie Nielsen is giving the symptoms of the illness, and of course the entire time, every time he names something, the captain then immediately shows whatever that
right,
is through action and
presents those symptoms.
presents those symptoms. Um, and of course, I'd always found this funny in and of itself. But as happens when you get older and your world expands and you include new information, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but I feel like it is. That sequence I appreciate now on a new comedic level because it and again it may not necessarily have been doing it on purpose, but I think that I choose to think that it was is poking fun at these instructional videos where they do exactly that. They say, well, these are the symptoms of this, 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 and they always show a person in the instructional video who then immediately has to like demonstrate and show you what that looks like. Oh, so
Right,
when
because you
you're having
can't possibly imagine it.
yeah, because you can't imagine these things, so they have someone like demonstrating when you're having a stroke, one side of your face will droop, you know. And so,
But hey, an actor got work, so
all right, no, I'm not criticizing that. But what I think is funny is I'm watching that, and it's very serious, and it's like, oh, this is how these are the signs you should look for in stroke, and da 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 da. And I'm watching this, but my brain in this class is seeing that and going, airplane.
great.
So I'm trying not to laugh at this because like no one would understand. I would just look like a crazy person. I mean, I look like a crazy person on a consistent basis. But
You would look like you were laughing at the stroke victim, and that's insensitive at best. They tend to frown on that in CPR training.
it's insensitive at best. Yeah.
Like they say, everybody passes CPR, but I think at that point, if you start to laugh at the stroke victims, you don't pass. You have to go for the second
I don't
round.
know. They might reevaluate whether or not I'm really the kind of individual who should be caring for people
But well,
in
and at that point, you're really not getting wilderness certified. They're just going to be like, no.
yes, certainly not.
It's like, dude, you barely made it past, God forbid you have a stroke victim on the trail. Okay, we
Right,
don't want this kind of nonsense going on.
right.
So that,
So yeah, so I found that very funny because, like I said, I choose to believe that they were in Airplane actually lampooning these instructional videos through that scene. But it made watching that scene very, very difficult for me because I was trying so hard not to laugh.
But
Um,
difficult in a different way, so that's good. Like not
right.
difficult as in, oh my God, I'm going to shoot myself. This is so boring.
Yes.
But
Well, no,
difficult as in, I'm very entertained by this, but I can't show it.
but I can't show it. No, I will say I was never bored in the class, but I mean that comes from the fact that I'm there for a reason. I really want to learn this stuff, so
Mhm.
it's all relevant to me.
Was it a DMV cross section class? And what I mean by this, and you probably know you don't understand what I mean by this. This is the first time Mark Duggar doesn't understand something. Like
Well,
immediately, like your brow furrowed, and you were like, "What do you mean DMV cross section? What do you speak?" No, I'll explain what I mean. So every time you go to the DMV, and I don't know how many times you've been personally, but I've been several times in my life, because I'm a good bit older than you.
okay, I know what you mean now.
You see a cross section of Americana, an almost perfect. I don't think psychologists could get a cross section of Americana as accurately as walking into any DMV USA anywhere gives you.
Oh my God, Nicole, you're right.
I am right.
And this class was. We had some Asian people, a couple of Mexican people. Okay, I want you to know, we had a guy come in there. He was a personal trainer, and he's huge. Just, I saw him, and the moment I saw him walk through the door, I was like, ha, ha.
Don't beat me up, big man. I'm tiny. I'm
We're
tiny, but I'm
walking.
spry. I'll run away.
Yeah, exactly. At one point, we went to help our instructor carry in all of the little like dummies. Um, And uh, and it's him and I walking down the hallway, and I just look up at him because, of course, he's way taller than me, because everyone's taller than me,
Not everyone.
and most people. And so there he is walking, taller, muscles are like, I'm not kidding. It's like this is where
Good.
his
He's got like
biceps.
tree trunks for arms, and you're like
I looked up at him, I just
being
went,
intimidated just by his presence.
right, exactly. I was. So I looked at him and I went, sir, because I believe that it's fun to just let people know these things. Said, you, sir, strike an imposing figure. I just want you to know.
Did you really say that to him?
Yes.
Was he like, no shit?
To which he laughed, looked down at me, and then goes, well, I'm a bit bigger than you.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, just a skosh, sir, just a skosh. But yeah, no, this was a very wide cross section of people. We even had there was a lady in there who originates from the Dominican Republic and is here. I guess her father is here, and I do not know why because we never got that far in the conversation. But I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh, and the other thing was like they talked about why she had us introduce ourselves and talk about why we were taking the class, which I was like, oh, that's a thing that,
Interesting.
you know. So you got some people were doing it for like because they babysat. Somebody was doing it because they took care of elderly people. I mean, the average response was, "Oh, for my job, you know."
Nobody was just like, I like to be around mannequins.
I like to. Curiously enough, nobody said that.
You know
But
what? I really want to go now to
yeah,
a place
now that you've
class,
said
and I
that,
want that to be my answer, just to see what the fuck people would do. I like to be around mannequins.
I like to be
And
around
then,
guys.
and like the whole time, then be like unnaturally obsessed with the mannequins.
Like, get the one that's like this is the one that you will use, and then you name it, and you
Oh yeah,
start
name it. You start
giving
talking.
it you start giving it human attributes.
Oh,
He's not
totally.
feeling well right now. You're going to have to let
And
Steve.
like, and then like when it's like supposed to like be in shock or something, live, live, damn you, like pounding it, but like doing it right because you want to pass, but
Right,
being emotionally involved in the hands of the mannequin.
which would change that entire class setup. So because when we
You
went to,
would at that point be a disruptive influence, I think, in the class. Not you, but
I know
you.
whoever
No, I
chose to.
want to do that now. Oh my God. I may do that someday. I mean, I don't know why.
You know what we should do, Nicole?
But
We should go to like a recertification class together, and both of us.
that would be great. Oh my God. Yes.
and then both of us be just as invested because then it becomes like a scene, and we would just do.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee that everyone would be like,
You'd be like, no, because I'm serious. Like, could you imagine getting that answer as an instructor? What would you do at that point? You would have to, I don't know what I would do if somebody was like,
it's okay, calm down. This is just a simulation.
well, not only that, but like when they're like, why are you here? I have a natural affinity for dummies. I mean mannequins. Sorry, I didn't mean to use the pejorative term,
Right.
dummy. They don't like. But
Like,
no, and then you could go into like a whole monologue later about how you used to hang out in department stores, and
nobody in that class would talk to you, and
oh
everyone
god,
would.
oh
They'd be
god.
like,
But you'd have to be completely sincere. You couldn't crack. You
yeah,
couldn't.
yeah. You just have to be. You have to play the straight man the whole time.
Oh my god, that's a sketch. I've now written a sketch. My sketch class. Isn't that a great sketch?
That's a great sketch.
Viewers, please click like or comment if you think that's a good idea for a sketch. If you don't hurt my feelings. Just say nothing.
Just say nothing.
Say nothing. You know, what your mother said when.
Yeah.
Never.
You don't have anything nice to say.
Don't say anything at all
Oh.
because I will. I don't know. Jump off a building or something. That'll be your fault.
Be really drastic for that.
What?
Jump off a building? Is that what
No,
you
I
said?
wouldn't really jump off a building. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring us all down to that level on this blog.
What if the comment was just, I think it could use some work. Woo!
I would jump at that point. I'd just be like, well, thank you for that constructive criticism. I should probably stop talking right now because if people are watching this, they're going, well, she was funny. Now we think she's just disturbed.
Now she's just disturbed.
Anyway.
So anyway, well, lightening things up, I guess then.
Yeah, it's like
It's like, oh, that was amusing, and then got randomly heavy. So, but yes, so there was a DMV cross section in this.
oh no, yeah, but and that's what I think is interesting is that yeah, I mean you walk into a DMV anywhere and you get a cross section of, and let me be very clear when I say this, Americana. Because like there are people in the DMV that should be on Jerry Springer.
Yes.
No, I'm serious.
Oh, I know you are,
and you're like,
we all know you're serious.
but then you have, like the 16-year-old yuppie girl too, and you have the professional lawyer, and you have the school teacher, and you have, the 16-year-old kid, and you have every race and creed and belief imaginable in this one area. Like I said, if psychologists really want cross sections, I personally would canvass DMVs on any given day, and just be you, come with me, because there is no better way to really look at our country, I think.
Right. Well, because everyone gets a driver's license.
Everybody gets a driver's license.
It doesn't matter what you do, who you are, you've got to go there.
Yep.
That's funny. I never really given that a whole lot of thought.
Yeah, like even really, again, back to the whole poor thing. Really poor people still have to go to the DMV, even if they don't drive. You need identification.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody goes, and everybody's the same. Like, there's no special treatment at the DMV. I don't care if you're a millionaire. Now, some people make appointments now because you can make an appointment, and then you're kind of like sort of a VIP. You're like in the fast lane at Disney.
Right.
If you're still in line, you're just faster line.
Just in a faster, a little bit of a different line.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yes. But then no, because I lived in Japan for a long time. I lived in Japan for like 6 years. And one of the first things I did when I came back to the States, when I was on vacation or something, was go to the DMV. And it struck me, like, physically, I was sitting there going, oh my God, by how much it was a cross section,
Right.
and it stuck with me clearly.
Clearly.
I was wondering if your first aid class was a cross section as well. Like I said, I think any community ed or anything that involves community.
Right. It stands a better chance of pulling a wider range of people. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And if you think about it, very few other places in our country do that. Think about it. You can even think of bars. You can think of supermarkets. You can think
Right.
of
Well, because
because
bars, I mean, people have, like, bars are in certain areas of town. So, like, this is a fancy bar. This is a not fancy bar. So you're going to get the fancy people here, the not so fancy people here, you
yeah,
know? So
same
that,
thing with supermarkets. Like you don't have fancy people in a non-fancy supermarket usually. You don't have people who shop at Food Lion and Publix. Not usually.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm from Florida, so that's why I said Publix. Well, you're from Florida, you know.
I
Um, but
What up,
yeah.
people? Go to Publix.
But no, so yeah, and so again, if you take a demographic of any other locale, you just don't have that. You do not have that cross section the way you do in the government sector.
Huh, that's so funny. Oh, that's very true. I hadn't thought about that.
I know.
Yeah. So,
So, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say to people, so when you go to the DMV next, whoever, you just pay close attention, look around.
Yeah, you'd be like, whoa, she's right. The more you know.
The more you know.
See, we do that. We do that once a blog. Go on. Um, we got no. So I'm reading Blink. And Blink is by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. I know the author's name now, so I sound intelligent.
Yeah.
As opposed to before going, it's the guy who did this thing, and he was like, this it was like lie to me, but it wasn't lie to me.
So there's one person who did that thing. You know what? Forget
You
it.
know, come on, I'll read, and I did. I'm about a little more than a quarter way through it, I would say. I'm not quite halfway through it. Um, but rereading it is even more interesting because, like, the first time you read it, really the first time you read anything, you have these impressions that form and blah 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 blah, and but then when you go back and reread something,
Yeah.
you have your initial impression, and now you have this like other layered, almost objective impression rather than subjective. Does that make any sense?
Sort of, kind of.
Um,
I know what you mean.
yeah. So like, yeah, so now I'm looking at the book, I think more objectively than subjectively, if that makes any sense.
What now? What is this? Nonfiction, fiction? What is this?
No, it's nonfiction, totally
Okay.
not. Um,
See, because
it,
I think when you, I think when you reread fiction, it's different.
mhm.
Because I don't think you're going to reread fiction and have an objective view of the.
No, that'd be weird. Um,
I can
a lot
analyze this story now more than ever before.
personally, I feel Gandalf is, yeah, no. Um,
Well, that's not to say that.
of course, that's assuming people actually have read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings rather than not just gone and seen the movies. Our viewers, I'm sure, have read both classics.
I'm going to take this moment to, as a disclaimer, just say that I loathe those films with a passionate rage of 1,000 dying suns. I will not get into that in this episode because we're almost at time. But it's a long topic, and a lot of the people who know me have heard that rant before. So I won't get into it, but I hate those films.
I wonder if subconsciously that's why I brought, because I mean, there's literature, there's thousands of books I could have brought up, but what characters do I center on? Hobbits and Gandalf.
Hobbits
Which,
and Gandalf.
I think I did that just to piss you off, Mark. Subconsciously.
It
Not
doesn't make me angry, the characters in and of themselves. But see, this is the conundrum of the Lord of the Rings.
that's coming. Oh, sorry.
This is the conundrum of the Lord of the Rings is that I now, because the films exist and infuriate me on the level that they do, it is very difficult now to have that as a subject brought up and not have my brain not be aware of the burning, raging hatred which I have for those films. Because my brain goes, Oh, Lord of the Rings, great books, horrible films. You know, and those I can't get rid of the horrible films part of the thought process.
No,
It's
clearly not. Clearly not. I mean, if I were to rate both things you just did, horrible films would be more scary. Because, like, your great films is like, great films, I'm sorry, great films, horrible films.
yes.
So I would agree with the horrible film side of your brain. Not that they were horrible films, but that you feel more strongly on that.
Yes. Well. Anyway, but I'm not going to get into it. Not going to. Um,
Not going to get into it.
because that would
No,
tell.
so, yeah, so Blink. Blink is about, God, Blink's about a lot of stuff.
Be
The
careful not
base,
to give spoilers away, or if you're going to say something before you do.
no, I
Ah,
will. Well, you
okay.
can't really spoil a nonfiction book. I mean, you
Well,
could.
Nicole, actually, I beg to differ because just because it's nonfiction doesn't mean there can't be something in it that people want to not know going into it, then discover. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't know of a readily available instance where that was a thing, but I'm just saying it's just precaution, okay?
I will. Yes. Well, because you're right. Actually, there are quite a few spoilers that were, I could spoil stuff because there's some really interesting stories, and the way this dude backs up a lot of what he's saying is through these stories or different experiments that psychologists have done, yada yada yada. Malcolm Gladwell himself is not a psychologist. He's written for the New Yorker and the New York Post, I think. So he's a columnist, writer, journalist, what have you. Um, but obviously a really smart dude.
Yeah.
And done a ton of research on this idea. And I actually, to be honest with you, I don't know if he has any background in psychology. I know he's not a psychologist. Like I said, he's a writer, but he may have background in psychology.
Yeah.
Doesn't really say in the book. But the Blink is about a couple of things. The first is the ability of our subconscious to make immediate decisions on something.
Right. I was actually there was a YouTube video I was watching recently that touched on that topic, and I was like, oh, Nicole was talking about that recently.
Hmm. And so the example that he gives, and this isn't really a spoiler, but it's kind of cool, is there was the J. Paul Getty Museum in California, I want to say, um,
I don't know.
in the 80s, bought a statue, and it was a Kouros, which is from Greece or something like that. And it's this it was supposed to be like 10,000 years old or something ridiculous like that, and it had all this documentation with it, and
Right.
they brought in a team of scientists to study it because they were worried it was fake because it came from a private art dealer and who had happened upon it, blah 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 blah. But he had all this documentation of where it had come from, and lawyers had looked at the paperwork and this that and the other. So the museum, um, before they bought the piece, they, like I said, they brought in this team of researchers, they brought in a team of lawyers, they did a bunch of fact checking, but they also, um, because they were proud of it, I guess. Well, they were a young museum, so they were trying to make a name for themselves. But they would bring in people like famous sculptors or people who basically knew their shit. And
Right.
they'd bring them down to the secret back room, and they'd be like, "Look, this is what we got," kind of like any kid does. And they'd rip off the thing, and they'd be like, "Here's our Kuros," and like 5, 6 of these famous sculptors or people who dealt with art on a daily basis were like, "Hmm, are you buying that? Did you buy it?" And they're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Sorry." And the museum was like, "What do you mean, sorry? We've had this carbon dated. And they did. They had it carbon dated. They had a bunch of other tests done that proved where it came from and how old it was and yada yada yada." And so they were like, "We know that this is from this team of scientists' perspective. We know that this is an original. We have proof."
Right.
And then all of the art people who came in knew it was a fake. They knew it. They were like, this is a fake. And they couldn't explain how they knew. They just knew. And so like later on they were asked, well, how did you know? And their answers were really random and vague. One of the guys said, I've dealt with things that have come out of the ground my entire life. You know, he's an archaeologist or whatever. And he was like, and when I saw this statue, it was like a 7-foot statue. He's like, when I saw this statue, the word that leapt to my mind was fresh.
Huh.
And he was like, and that's wrong. That's not the word.
Yeah.
Another person said it was shiny. And it was this gleaming statue.
Yeah.
And so it looked wrong to these guys. Another guy had a physical reaction. He felt nauseated.
That is so random.
Yeah, yeah. But that's because it was their subconscious going, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
Nothing about this is good.
Right. Well, it's like you in the Hobbit movies.
Everything that is here is an abomination.
Pretty much.
Although I will say, disclaimer: Martin Freeman was a perfect casting for Bilbo.
He was. So yeah, so this was the first story, if you will, in the book, and they were right, by the way, it was a fake. The way they discovered this is in the back trail. Their dates didn't match up. Like one postmark was a postmark that had actually come out 20 years after this letter is purported to have been written. The carbon dating apparently could have been done by rubbing a rotten potato on the statue, which makes it seem like it's 10,000 years old, but it's not actually 10,000. Don't ask me. That's what the book said. I was like,
look, I'm not a scientist or an expert in carbon dating, so.
But I was like, that's kind of strange, but whatever. And so, yeah, so they discovered that, yeah, it's a fake. And so this dude went back and he asked these people, he's like, why, how did you know? And they were like, I don't know, I just knew. And so, they were like, I can't explain it, it felt wrong.
Right.
And so that's the first part of the book. He talks about the powerful ability of the subconscious to, and then later on he explains what it's called, and it's called thin slicing.
Yeah. Huh.
And so it's your subconscious or unconscious ability to gather a bunch of information that you know, and off of that information makes split-second decisions.
Right.
Which can be both. Yeah. Oh, it's an awesome book. Which can be both very beneficial, but at the same time, horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And so the key is in figuring out when it's beneficial and when it's not. And acting or reacting, if you will, to things accordingly.
Right.
And so yeah, I thought that was fascinating. I was like, holy shit, amazing.
Should I take away from this that you highly recommend this book to anyone and everyone?
Good night. I'm sure. Roommate again. Dan says good night, Duggar.
Good night.
Was gonna say, oh God, yes, I highly recommend this book. It's Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I'll talk about it in the next vlog too, I'm sure, because I will have read more. But yeah, there's this other part of the book where there's a mathematician, Goldstone, I think is his name, or something like that, and he takes married couples into what he calls his love lab, which sounds scary.
It sounds terrifying.
All of this sounds terrifying.
Oh man!
But no, he does. He takes married couples down to this love lab, and hooks them up to all kinds of stuff, electrodes and things that test their palms and their heart rate and EKG
Sure.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he has them discuss something that is a point of contention in their marriage, but is not about their marriage. So, for example, a pet
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
seemingly not innocuous, but again, a point of contention, but not
Always leave the toilet seat up. There's a standard one.
exactly.
You know.
But
Why
not
are your towels always on the floor in the kitchen when you shower in the bathroom? I don't understand why that's a thing that happens.
right. So this one couple, I think for the purposes of the book, they call them Bill and Susan. But Bill and Susan were talking about the dog, and the whole time they're talking about the dog, there's moments in the discussion where they both seem very content, happy. They're teasing each other, but it's like good-natured teasing or whatever, yada yada
Okay.
yada. And it was like a half an hour long video thing. So this mathematician dude has thin sliced 30 different emotions that he can pick out. So like contempt, contempt and disgust are close, but like contempt, joy, defending, being defensive, um,
Uh-huh.
um, reciprocating,
Right.
uh, you know, all these things. And so he's these 30 things or whatever are things that these young grad assistants now have to look for in this conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's,
Um,
yeah. Whoa.
oh,
I, I'd be so lost. I'd be like, and a thing, and another thing. Maybe. I'm not sure. Damn it.
and they're trained to do this. So
Wow.
it's called like a fast something. But they're trained to recognize. Um, I can't wait to tell you the next thing. But hold on. So they're trained to recognize these patterns, basically, of behavior between couples. So what this guy can do, whatever his name is, um, he can accurately predict off of one of these conversations whether this same couple will be married 15 years later
Whoa.
with 90% accurate, sorry, 95% accuracy for an hour-long conversation, 90% accuracy for a 30-minute conversation, and then it drops down to about 80% accuracy for a 15-minute conversation, but
Wow.
across the board because of these simple, um, basically this set of equations, or behavioral equations that he mathematically just goes boom, 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 and this formula that he's worked out.
Gosh, that's
Um,
insane.
it is insane.
Uh, so, and
Here's some. Oh,
with that, because we're running long, so that'll be the end for this blog. Um, what's the name of the book again?
Blink by
Blank.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay, well, I'll have to read that at some point or another because that sounds fascinating. Our video, our blog viewers, you guys maybe check that out if it's something that sounds like it would interest you. So, that's all for this week. This blog, whatever time frame it is that we're releasing these on. Currently, it's weekly. We'll see what happens. It'll probably remain that way. But anyway, so cool. That's that. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.